If you are curious about exploring what it's like to grow older, especially as menopause is quickly approaching, and you really want to know what that will be like affecting your relationships and especially your sexuality, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I will be looking at All Fours by Miranda Joy. Welcome to Spencer's Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're taking a look at a book that I am not entirely sure how it got on my reading list, to be honest. I think maybe a friend suggested it somewhere along the way, and so I might put it in the to-read list, and so here I am, reviewing it. This is a interesting book. I don't want to downplay how I feel like it could contribute to an important conversation about the experiences of aging, and I certainly don't want to downplay how I do think that this is a valuable book for giving voice to something that a lot of people experience. Matter of fact, I thought one of the highlights came at the very end of the book when it was discussing an individual's experience, and then when they reached out to some friends, the immediate response that they got suggested that this was something that lots of people had been thinking about and just something they were waiting to be asked about. And I think that's incredibly important. That being said, I will say that the nature of this book also means that there's quite a few things in it that are not for everybody. I don't think I was the intended audience. I do think that the way it's written, the prose, the approach to human relationships, I can still definitely feel some connections with. But on account of the fact that I'm not a middle-aged woman approaching menopause, I don't think it was entirely designed for me. That's fine. Not all books are meant for everybody. But the premise of this book, the main character, her name is Claire. She is in her mid to late 40s. I think she gives an exact age at one point. I don't remember, but she does talk about how, first of all, she starts out by discussing somebody that's peeking into her house. There's this sense that maybe she's famous enough that someone wants to get a picture of her. And she never really explains why she might have some fame. It's not a lot, but some fame. She does at one point say that she was a stripper, but I don't know if that's what she means by famous. I don't know. Are strippers famous? I don't know enough. But she does have some kind of ongoing work and programs and projects that are keeping her involved that seem to be at least tied to whatever made her famous. And at some point, she is going to go on a trip. At least that is what she plans on doing. She is married. She has one child, somewhere on the neurodivergent spectrum, and who is non-binary. And that is a bit of the conversation. And so she has this very small family, and she says that she's going to go on a road trip to New York. And she leaves and heads to New York, but she does not make it far. She only makes it about 15 minutes or so away from her hometown and ends up, somewhere else and just starts this random little exploration and being infatuated with this individual that she meets, a much younger man. And the book, it doesn't really have a straight path forward from there, but the whole point is to essentially discuss how she's feeling about individuals that she's meeting and, of course, her own feelings as she is getting older and clearly has always been a very sexually active person and who has always had the benefit of people being attracted to her. And so this is also tying into her question of, as she's aging, are people less attracted to her? Suddenly she's much more concerned with age in a way that she didn't seem to be. And on top of that, she frequently has this reference to the fact that menopause is quickly approaching. She doesn't think it's there yet, but one of the things she does have to deal with is, well, actually, when exactly does it come? Everyone talks about hot flashes and stuff, but she's starting to realize that there's other symptoms that could be much more challenging to identify. So after she returns from her fake trip, she is then going to go on an even more active and a more engaged exploration of her relationships with her husband, with her child, and with other people. And so there is certainly an element of infidelity in this book, although there's also an element of open marriages that becomes a part of this book. And I don't want to just brush over that, but that's essentially how this book works. There's not a really significant single storyline that I need you to know more than you just need to know that this is an individual trying to figure out what she wants in life, especially as it pertains to her sexuality and dealing with getting older. And not just in terms of sexuality getting older, but what kinds of other needs you have as you get older and how it affects you to no longer be able to have children. That's something that is a significant product of menopause that can really affect uh, women's mental health and the way that they now engage with the world. So those are the things that are the real heart of this book. Miranda Joy is an artist. She does not just write. She has other forms of art that she pursues. And I would say that her writing is definitely focused on the prose. So the quality of writing is incredible. I would also say that even though there is a fair amount of discussion of sexuality, it is not an overly graphic book, or even if it is graphic at times, it's not really meant to be particularly erotic. And I'm not just saying that, because she's getting older, therefore it's not erotic, but because it's also just not entirely meant to be erotic. At least I didn't think it was meant to be. Again, because it's not meant for me, I could be mistaken, and I would love to hear if someone has a better understanding of that. But overall, I'd have to say the purpose of this book is simply to be an open exploration. And like I said, at the very end, when she finally realizes, yes, menopause is upon her, and she reaches out to friends and say, what can you tell me about menopause? And immediately has all these responses. She realizes, oh, this is something that people deal with, but they deal with it quietly. Therefore, it doesn't get the open discussion that it needs. And that seems to be essentially the reason for the writing of this book. I will say that I didn't find much of the meandering story to get to that point all that important. I also can't say that I found much of the discussions that she has or her mindset something that I could actually agree with, especially when it came to some of her relationships and her obsession with getting into relationships. But that doesn't mean that that is not a question or a concern that other people, particularly people like her, would certainly still have and have a connection to. So who would I say this is for? Well, I don't want to just say this is for middle-aged women that are quickly approaching menopause, that also clearly had a pretty active sex life, and they don't know what to expect as they get older. I think that is probably drawing way too narrow of a scope for it, but I would definitely start there. And then I would expand that to say that this book is for anyone that wants to have a frank and fair discussion of what it's like to get older, even if it's not going to be your personal experience, whether it's because you're a guy and so you're not going to go through menopause, or you don't relate to the fact that she had a very active sexual life when she was younger, or whatever else is about this that you don't feel like you could connect to. That doesn't mean that you can't still find value in this discussion of what it's like to be a human, what it's like to get older, and what it's like to have our needs and our desires to change, and how we interact with the world and the way the world helps to determine all those different things, and exactly what the best path forward is for individuals as they're trying to sort everything out. I think if you're interested in those things, then this is a book that you could find something in it for you. Who is this not for? Most people, but that's fine. I think that's by design. I just don't think most people are going to be interested in this type of exploration. I know in the booktube and book talk universe, there's a lot of discussion of all different types of romance novels, whether it's romantasy or whatever. This is not romance. Just because there are some discussions of sex in this, there's, in my opinion, no real romance in this. There is at best some conversations about long-term relationships and much longer senses of connectivity. So I would say that this certainly does not fall into that very popular brand right now of romance. But I would say, so I wouldn't exactly recommend it for any of those people that come to the book reviews looking for what's going to be the spiciest book. This is not going to be that book for you. But I would love to hear what other people have to say about this book, their thoughts on its main themes, what they thought the central purpose of it was, if you think it's different from what I thought, and especially who you think this book was or wasn't intended for, because I think people will probably have a different understanding than I did. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.